49ers update from my favorite spot in Prague. This is the castle, that's St. Vitus Cathedral, and hey, why not a 49ers training camp preview? It's that time, right? We've got less than 2 weeks before veterans report to training camp, less than a week before the rookies have to be in the building, and some of the rookies, including Mykel Williams, have already been on site. They've stayed on site throughout all of summer for the 49ers, which I think is music to Kyle Shanahan's ears. Because there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This has been an ambitious restocking effort for the 49ers over the course of the offseason, one primarily rooted in the NFL draft. So you've got to get these young guys some experience. You can also add more veterans, and that still seems to be a possibility in a lot of people's minds. I see people saying Asante Samuel Jr., he's still available. Asante Samuel Jr., by the way, was high school teammates with Nick Bosa, St. Thomas Aquinas High School, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I looked up the year that they played together. Asante Samuel Jr., the cornerback who was with the Chargers before this, he was a sophomore. Nick was a senior, and St. Thomas Aquinas, as you might imagine, was very good. They went 13-1. I personally don't think that the 49ers are interested in adding a bigger name cornerback right now. If they can find somebody at a bargain price, maybe, but they've got a lot of young guys who they're working in and a lot of promising players, Renardo Green being one of them. People freaked out a little prematurely about Renardo Green's play during OTAs, saying, oh boy, Demarcus Robinson beat him on a deep pass that we saw the 49ers post to social media. There might be an issue here. Guys, there's not an issue. Demarcus Robinson did not have to deal with press coverage from Renardo Green. Press coverage is not a thing during OTAs unless you're Diomede Lenore and you're getting Kyle Shanahan fined $100,000. So receivers inherently have an advantage in the spring. Real football is not going to begin until a little less than 2 weeks from now at 49ers training camp. And that real football will mean press coverage. It will mean, obviously with the pads coming on, some more contact up front. The 49ers will finally have the opportunity to start properly evaluating the defensive linemen whom they've added through the NFL draft and through the trade market when it comes to Bryce Huff over the course of the offseason. We've talked a lot about the run defense, and I've done several videos on that. That was the article up on the San Francisco Standard last week. But this time I wanted to talk about the brain trust at the top of the defensive line with Khris Kocurek, defensive line coach, now rejoined by Robert Saleh, the 49ers defensive coordinator. You know, the last time that these two guys united to lead the 49ers defense, or at least the front four of the 49ers defense, was 2019, and the results for San Francisco were spectacular. I mean, they were the number 26 defense by EPA in 2018, the year before Khris Kocurek showed up as the defensive line coach. The 49ers improved to number 2 in just one season. And it wasn't just those two guys that joined for the 49ers. It obviously was a personnel thing as well. They needed edge rushers in 2018. That was a historically bad defense, by the way, in 2018 when it came to taking the football away. They had only 2 interceptions, and so much of it was because they weren't pressuring quarterbacks from the edge. They weren't forcing faster, more hurried throws. So QBs were all too comfortable. Anyway, they got Nick Bosa, big-time investment. First-round pick, number 2 overall out of Ohio State, and they also traded for Dee Ford, a speed rusher that would complement Bosa perfectly when he was healthy and be able to constrain the pocket in the vision that Khris Kocurek brought to the table. He changed everything to a wide 9. So he brought a scheme that was way more friendly for edge rushers, especially speed rushers, and the 49ers also stocked up on the types of players that would fit that particular scheme. Well, fast forward here, 6 years, 2025, what have the 49ers done? They've united Robert Saleh and Khris Kocurek. I guess I should say reunited, but there's been an inversion. Kocurek's already been around. Robert Saleh is now the new guy, technically the new guy. He's been away for a few years. So they have the 2019 brain trust at the top of the defense and defensive line back in place. And they've again decided to truly stock up on D-line talent. Now, this is something that is really important to emphasize because a lot of people just kind of lazily assumed that the 49ers were investing in the defensive line year in, year out because there was a stereotype that was a stick over from 2017 to about 2019, 2020, that the 49ers just pour unlimited resources into that side of the ball, that all they want to do are draft edge rushers and sign defensive tackles. But if you look at the facts, from 2019, when the 49ers drafted Nick Bosa at number 2 overall in the first round, between then and 2025, when they drafted Mykel Williams at number 11 overall in the first round, the 49ers did not use a single first-round pick on an edge rusher. And as we know, for Khris Kocurek, for any team really, but especially for Kocurek running that elongated wide 9, edge rusher is one of the most premium positions on the field. So for 6 seasons there, like there was a 6-year stretch, 2019 to 2025, without a 49ers selection of an edge rusher in the first round. An edge rusher might be that one position along with quarterback, but quarterback is really, really tough to predict. But edge rusher is a position where the draft positioning is very, very correlated to success, because there are certain physical characteristics that I think are really, really tied and to success at that position, with the speed and the power and the ability to turn that speed and power into victories against offensive tackles. The highest pick that the 49ers had used on an edge rusher in the interim between 2019 and 2025 was for Drake Jackson, who was number 61 in 2022. That was the year they picked Brock Purdy at 262. So a low second-round pick, almost out of the second round entirely, is all that the 49ers used, and obviously Drake Jackson did not work out for this football team. Drake waived with a failed physical designation just about 2 months ago. So the talent along this defensive line had eroded over the course of several seasons. And I think it was clear by 2024 that it was a Band-Aid effort for San Francisco, right? Malik Collins came in because they needed some more juice rushing the passer from the inside after Eric Armstead didn't re-sign with the team on the pay cut that the 49ers had offered him. Leonard Floyd came in as a potential fill-in for Nick Bosa, as the bookend for Nick Bosa. But although he was a good pass rusher, and I think really good at some of those cleanup sacks, a very hustle-forward player, a guy that you enjoyed having in your D-line room, he didn't move the needle in a positive direction as far as run defense went, and we've seen the 49ers run defense erode so poorly over the past 2 seasons. Javon Hargrave, same thing. I mean, they signed him. It's hard to call him a Band-Aid because he was such a lucrative signing for the 49ers at $19 million a year. But Javon Hargrave wasn't a good run defender for the 49ers, and he joined the team just as the run defense was starting to sink under Steve Wilks, and then his successor defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen. So what you had was the 49ers defensive line, which had once been mighty, but had been decaying, especially against the run, under the leadership that followed Saleh and DeMeco Ryans, and they were desperately trying to cling on to some of the success from the past, and they're trying to fill some of these holes with Band-Aids, right? But they finally hit that wall in 2024. That strategy wasn't going to work anymore. The D-line had just fallen off way, way too far from its peak in the past, and all of the performance struggles were very, very well documented on both the tape and in the stat sheet. And if you can't stop the run, you're not going to have any fun. Hence the total restocking effort that we have seen this offseason. 49ers trying to build something beautiful again. And I think at the root of everything is versatility, is positional adaptability, because the last time that we saw Kocurek and Saleh unite in 2019, and by the way, they were also together in 2020, despite a bunch of injuries, they were able to field the number 6 defense, and I mean, that's when Kerry Hyder had the 8.5 sack season for the 49ers. So these two guys, the combined brain trust of Kocurek and Saleh has been able to yield big-time results from the 49ers defensive line, and a lot of it's been rooted in adaptability. And I'm talking about ends being able to slide into defensive tackle to take advantage of guards with their length and their athleticism. And I'm talking about defensive tackles themselves being extremely versatile between the 1-tech, the 3-tech, and the 2-eye alignments on the inside. The 49ers and Kocurek preach this maybe more than any other D-line, and it was a really, really underlying emphasis of this 2025 draft class. What do I mean by that? Well, look at Mykel Williams. He played a position at Georgia called the jack. He was all over the alignment. They didn't run the same scheme as the 49ers, but Mykel Williams still was out on the edge, was playing in the A gap for Georgia, and every position in between. He had snaps across virtually the entire defensive line for the Georgia Bulldogs, with a whole heck of a lot of other talent next to him on that team, and he still was obviously able to carve out a big role for himself. And last year he played most of the year on an ankle sprain, a high ankle sprain that really limited his effectiveness. So the 49ers believe that this guy at 100%, playing at the two spots that he's best tailored to, that's run stopping edge, like set the edge against the run, and then a pass rushing force against guards, they think that he could be a really destructive player along that D line for the 49ers. So that's a great example of the positional versatility that the 49ers saw on tape from Mykel Williams in college, that they think is going to translate and is going to be perfect for what Kocurek and Saleh want up front. Then there's the example of CJ West. He's 6'1", he's 316. This is a one-tech through and through with the way that he's built. He helped transform Indiana's run defense. I mean, teams, they had one of the best run defenses in the league last year, especially against the A gap. Teams just didn't want to run against the Hoosiers, and CJ West was only there for 1 year. So you look at CJ and you say, okay, this is your fire hydrant. This guy clogs the middle. This is your typical kind of one technique in the middle of a defense. But he can also play that three technique. And I think that's absolutely imperative. Robert Saleh and Khris Kocurek have both talked about this. Offenses, they've evolved. Defenses have to evolve. Saleh's talked about trying to stay 2 years ahead of offenses schematically. Well, the way that you do that is to make sure that you have players who can move on the fly. So, I mean, we've seen the adaptability on the back end. We've seen Kyle Shanahan talk about offensive adaptability so the 49ers can play the other side of this coin. But if a motion or a certain pre-snap alignment forces your defensive line to slide, and all of a sudden CJ West is lined up at a three technique instead of a one technique, he's got to be able to deliver, even though three techniques are typically taller players like Alfred Collins, the 49ers' second-round draft pick. So they believe that CJ can play the three. His home is the one, but adaptability is everything for San Francisco. And they think that they have it with these new players who have been around the facility over the course of this summer. That is huge news for the 49ers. The vibes have been good. We're talking about a preview for this season. I think we start there because the rookies are the guys who are going to be reporting first. Prague is also the city. Well, there's one more city on the way home, but this is the last city on the European mainland that we're going to be showing you before training camp officially starts. Beautiful view. We started under St. Vitus Cathedral. Now we get to see the rest of the city from Old Town Square to St. Nicholas Church. I promised a good burger episode for Prague. Maybe that will be coming down the pipeline. Amazing food here. I have to say this, we had a delicious brunch here in Prague today. I apologize to Turkish eggs. I was not familiar with your game. By the end of all this, we'll see if there'll be some media apologies to the 49ers. They might not be familiar with their defensive game. Bad defense for the 49ers in 2024, but they have brought in all the raw materials needed to really turn this around. From the coaching staff, Robert Saleh was able to write about, to a lot of the players. That front four for San Francisco, I mean, we still need to talk about Bryce Huff. I know I focused this on rookies. Bryce Huff might be able to do some of the versatile pass rushing alignments that Dee Ford executed in 2019. That could bring everything full circle, but they've got the coaches, they've got the players, they have improvements on all those fronts. They should be younger, faster, and hungrier on the defensive end in 2025. Bring on training camp. We'll see you guys soon.